Alright, fine, let's do part 2.
Curry with Tucker right with him. Curry launches a three. Puts it in again. Shoot. A minute and a half to play. That's a bomb. Oh, ridiculous.
Ah yes, the series everyone forgot about because of what happened after. What? You didn't watch the playoffs because of all the politics and stuff in the bubble? Well, that was stupid of you, but if you're confused about my statement on this series,
let's not worry about that.
The best first round series is obviously the Nuggets vs. Jazz. And it was obvious from the start as Game 1 went into overtime and Donovan Mitchell gave everyone a reminder of who he is. Too bad y'all always forget. But in Game 1, the man scored 57 points on 58% shooting. He was insane, but sadly it wasn't enough as Denver, behind Jamal Murray's 36 and Jokic's 29, overpowered Utah for that game. And here's a cool clip from the bubble after that game.
It's the crazy thing out here being in the bubble. I gotta see this dude right after the game. He just dropped 57!
Fast forward, and the Jazz would take a 3-1 lead over Denver as Mitchell was insane the whole way, dropping 51 in Game 4 to take the series lead. Sadly for him, his light-skinned shadow clone would transcend into stardom right when he needed to. In Game 5, around that time I believe, it was said that if you get to the next round, you can bring guests like family or partners. And we all know that one Jamal Murray video. So it was a very popular theory at the time that he heard that there was a way to bring his girl and move on in the playoffs. What was that way, you may ask? It was to become literally the greatest player to ever touch a basketball for 2 games. This dude went berserk, outdueling Donovan Mitchell in games 5 and 6. In an elimination game 5, he scored 50 on 65% shooting, and Denver needed all of that to counter Donovan's 30 bomb. Then in game 6, he was even better, dropping 50 and this time shooting 70%. And guess what? They needed all of that because Donovan Mitchell had 44 on 56% shooting. Now, here we are at game 7. There have been 4 close games up to this point, and a series like this can only end one way. An emotional, intense slugfest. This game was tight the whole way through as both teams forgot how to play basketball. That is, except for one man. One future MVP and a generational talent, Nikola Jokic led the way as the only good player that night as both Donovan and Jamal had off days. Jokic had 30 and 14 on 52% shooting. D-Mitch had 22 on an inefficient night, but literally everyone was inefficient, so who cares? And then the heartbreak happens.
They missed the layup. Gobert got it. Mitchell hanging at the other end. 2 seconds to go for the win, and it rims out. Denver hangs on.
Final score: Utah 78, Nuggets 80. Let's go!
Truly heartbreaking and an obvious supervillain origin story. I was so mad watching because I liked Donovan and wanted to see him move on, but it was still a classic series that literally everyone forgot about. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to why this episode. So now we are in the second round, and here is the great graphics that I have made again. So we have the Bucks vs. Heat, Celtics vs. Raptors, Lakers vs. Rockets, and the one you're all waiting for, so I'm not even gonna mention it by name. So let's get the only boring one out of the way. Rockets won game 1, and everyone was saying this is the downfall of LA. But you know, LA stopped playing around and beat them in 5 while exposing the Rockets' very obvious weaknesses. Man, I feel bad for PJ Tucker. Oh well, anyways, to a more interesting series. The Heat upset the Bucks. I say upset lightly because anyone that paid attention to those regular season games could see this coming. The Heat had the tools to stop Giannis, and sadly Giannis got hurt in Game 4 when he looked like he finally figured it out. So the Heat beat Milwaukee in 5 thanks to Chris Middleton. And all the Giannis haters had a field day calling Giannis a choker, saying he has no skill. For more on the Giannis story, click the link in the description or up here in one of these cards. It's great, trust me. Anyways, let's move on to a series I forgot happened, but was actually a classic. Ah yes, Celtics vs Raptors. The series nobody remembers, just like almost every series in the bubble. Almost! Anyways, this was an all-time great series and sadly suffers from the same thing that Denver and Utah did. As in, this series ended up being pointless. But that doesn't take away my enjoyment of the series, so let's get into it. Fast forward, the Celtics take a 2-0 series lead, and this series was so close to being boring. The Raptors were on the edge of being down 0-3, as Daniel Tice gives Boston a 2-point lead with barely any time remaining. All hope looks lost, but Nick Nurse, that crazy son of a created the greatest plan ever, which resulted in OG Anunoby doing this.
Marcus Smart's going to stay up high, taking anybody coming to the ball.
Series on the line. Anunoby got it off, and it goes! Did it count is the question. OG Anunoby buries a triple.
Insane. I was washing dishes during that and almost broke some. But in Game 4, Toronto would win again, tying the series 2-2. Game 5, usually the most important game of the series, was boring as Boston won easily. So Game 6, do or die. What do the Raptors do? Only put up the greatest game of basketball I have ever seen in my life at that point. Game 6 was a dogfight. It also further solidified Kyle Lowry as the greatest Raptor of all time. He gave it his all, hitting tough buckets whenever it seemed that Toronto was dead in the water. Eventually, there was a winner, and the Raptors survived another day, beating Boston in 2 overtimes behind Lowry's 33 points on big plays like these.
To try and help. If you're the Celtics, you got to tell him there's no help. Sending him to his right, send him middle and get help. Lowry falling away, got it! Kyle Lowry drills the jumper, and it's back to a 4-point lead.
But you may be wondering, where's their star player? Where was he the whole series? Well, to that, I would say Mr. Spicy P did not show up at all. He did not show up, and that angered me so much to the point that I made this rant on my Instagram. Side note, the Game 7 versus the Jazz and Nuggets, that is what prompted me to make a Instagram account, which later prompted me to make this channel, so shout out to the bubble. But he needed to show up. And just like the Avatar, when the world needed him most, he vanished. I won't go too hard on him, cause he isn't the biggest choker this year. Not by a long shot. But Game 7 happened, and it was intense. But Boston would move on after Fred VanVleet thought he was Steph Curry out there. But this series had me gain a lot of respect for Kyle Lowry and Nick Nurse, so I will be grateful for that. But okay, we will now talk about that series. So we're gonna fast forward because those first 4 games were hella boring, but the Clippers took a 3-1 lead over the Nuggets. Hey, this sounds familiar. Shut up, I'm still going. Kawhi was good in Game 5. Sadly, Marcus Morris trash talked and did this.
Outside, Beverly the close and a foul down low. And Morris and Millsap, chin to chin, eye to eye, and they got to be separated. 2 rugged players.
And if you're Morris, you got to be careful here because you've got up
Morris,
3-1. Yes,
he was fined coming into the series with a hit on Doncic.
Marcus Morris would go on to trash talk Paul Millsap. And guess who would lead the comeback from down 16 midway through the second quarter? That's right, Paul Millsap. But don't worry, they'll tighten up, right? We're good, and the Battle of LA will still happen, so all NBA fans are chillin'. Hi guys, current Sactown Tommy here, and I am just interrupting to say that past Sactown Tommy was very wrong. So very wrong. But back to the video. So let's turn on the TV and watch Game 6, and oh my god, it happened again. This time, the collapse was much quicker as they blew a 16-point halftime lead because Jokic is insane and had 34, 14, and 7 on 59% shooting. Just unreal. Now, contrary to many people's beliefs, Paul George played better than Kawhi this game with 33, but they'll tighten up in Game 7, right? Right? Oh my god. You know, when you're in love, love often makes you blind, as it has been said before. When we are in love with someone or an idea, that blinds you from any imperfections or red flags they have until it's too late. This is how many toxic relationships come about. I didn't think it was possible, but all the signs were there, and I was so in love with the Battle of LA idea that I ignored them. This was destined to happen. We're not allowed to have nice things like the Battle of LA, but let's look at all the signs that this was going to happen. Doc Rivers, who has blown hundreds of 3-1 leads, is the coach. It's the Clippers. They aren't allowed to have good things, says the basketball gods. Paul George was having mental health issues affecting his play due to the bubble. Kawhi always has some stinker games sporadically through the playoffs, and he hasn't had one yet. It's 2020. We don't deserve anything we want this year, as you can see from COVID and cancellation of sports. You know that we are not meant to have a good year. Jamal Murray was yet to erupt. They were all there. All the signs were there. Yet the need for a Battle of LA blinded me and many others. So now, about Game 7.
Guys are the first team ever in the 74-year history of the NBA to come back from being down 3-1 twice in the same playoffs. What do you have that no other team in NBA history?
Yeah. We believe in each other, man.
The Clippers once again have a double-digit lead and are in control with 3 minutes left in the second quarter. Sadly, it all comes downhill after that. Denver cuts it to 2 at half, and then it's a tug-of-war for about 9 minutes left in the third, and Denver would take the lead for good. They end the third quarter up 8, and hope for the dream of a Western Conference Finals, that is the Battle of LA, is dwindling away. But I'm holding out hope. And then Jamal Murray hits the mother of all daggers, and I knew it was over.
Murray trying to get it. Shot clock winding down. Murray puts up a three. Bang! Jamal Murray from downtown. It's an 18-point lead.
Jamal Murray crushed my hopes and dreams that night, but it also made me a Jamal Murray fan. I was severely disappointed in the Clippers, as I like them, just because I ain't like the Lakers. And I was pretty big on Kawhi and Paul George, as I was one of the many who saw Kawhi as the best player in the league. And when I say he choked so hard that night. It was the worst performance I have ever witnessed from a star player. I did not get to see 2011 LeBron, but I did get to see Harden versus San Antonio in 2017, Steph Curry in 2016, and even lesser stars like Ben Simmons against Boston in 2017. But this takes the cake. Kawhi, best player in the league, Leonard, in a win-or-go-home game, put up 14 points, shooting 6 for 22 from the field in 43 minutes of playing time. How do you do that? Now, believe me, I know Paul George played bad this run, and even this game with 10 points on 4 for 16 shooting in 38 minutes. But that does not excuse Kawhi at all. I'm tired of everyone acting like this didn't happen just because it was the bubble, but still getting on Paul George's performance. This is the game that had many people, myself included, declare LeBron as the best player still. But that night I was mad because you open up Twitter and what do you see? Paul George slander, Doc Rivers slander, but only a little bit of Kawhi slander. Should be more and stop excusing Mr. Kawhi Leonard. People still get on LeBron for 2011. They still get on Curry for 2016. But not this one? Is it because it wasn't the finals? Because then the slander should be even worse. People forget that Kawhi is known to have stinker games throughout series, so don't excuse him when it happens on the most important game of the series. Alright, enough about Kawhi. Let's get into Paul George. Paul George. Good old Paul George. Lol.
Shots, though.
George, way off. Hits the side of the backboard.
Alright, Paul. I like you. You hurt me, though. And it all started in November 2018 when you snubbed me of some shoes. Oh, don't worry. That story's coming out later. But, because that's a story time for another day. I was such a Paul George fan because I liked him in Indiana and OKC and his MVPG years. God, that's a terrible nickname. But whatever. I also loved his shoe, but that's not important. I hyped you up so much and defended your bad performances in the bubble. But that night, I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't have the strength. You let me down too many times to where I started making these jokes like Pandemic P and all that. I'm not happy I did it, but I needed a reminder about why you were one of my favorite players. Thank you for that this postseason. You was still some dog shit in the bubble. But look, I'm not gonna get on you too hard. You know you played bad. I'll put up the stats here. I don't feel comfortable talking about them. But look, I get it. You were having mental health problems in the bubble, especially because of isolation. So I'll excuse that. Alright guys, come on, just one more time though.
Shots, though.
George, way off. Hits the side of the backboard.
Mr. Doc Rivers. Yeah, I always thought you sucked at coaching. When I started watching, you were the coach of the Lob City Clippers, and around 2017, I was wondering, how are you seen as a legendary coach? Because my time as an NBA fan, I've just been told you are one of the best coaches in the league and you're some legendary coach. But I have not seen that. You blew a 3-1 lead in 2015 and have done it before then. Now, in the bubble, with arguably the best team you've ever had, you still can't lead a team out of the second round. Now, this loss in particular is still your fault, but not as much as other games. You didn't tell Kawhi to miss the layups, or tell Paul George to do this.
George, way off. Hits the side of the backboard.
Okay, I promise, that's the last one. But you coached this series terribly, and never had any plays set aside from Paul George, Kawhi, and Lou Williams ISOs. You never gave your guys some speech to make them believe. In fact, you even said this quote up here about inspiring guys. You benched Zubac for a struggling Montrezl Harrell, even though Zubac was your one guy that could slow down Jokic. You did horrible this series, and that's all. The rest of this team sucked that night too, aside from Montrezl Harrell, who sucked for all the other games, so who really cares? So now let's get positive and praise the Nuggets. I feel bad for Nugget fans since whenever the series is brought up, we talk about the chokers more than giving them credit. But for starters, this series, I realized how great Jeremy Grant was this run, so that was pretty cool. as mentioned before, Game 7 really made me a Jamal Murray fan, as he was insane that night, doing what I thought Kawhi was going to be doing, dropping 40 on 57% shooting, including the mother of all daggers that brought me back to reality. Jamal Murray was insane, and he was due to erupt, as he was so hot in the Utah series and hasn't performed like that in this series. Came up huge and overshadowed Jokic this game, who, as usual, played great. He was great this whole series, as Harrell couldn't hold him. That night, he had another triple-double with only 16 points, but he had 13 assists and 22 rebounds. Jokic had 22 rebounds, which is insane in a playoff game. Shout out Mike Malone, a great coach, as it does take more than great players to come back from down 3-1, let alone a second time in back-to-back playoff series. I miss you. Please come back to the Kings. Anyways, a great comeback from the Nuggets. So, let's move on to our last 4 teams. Just kidding. You wish I moved on, cause this episode ends here. Will the Nuggets continue their bubble magic? How will Miami and Boston series go? Who will win the prestigious reward of a bubble ring and get slandered on Twitter every day? Find out next time on Sactown Tommy. Hey guys, so this was the end of part 2. I hope you liked it. This is a really fun episode to record. I had a lot more fun recording this one than the last one. And as I said, I'm trying to push these out as quick as possible to make sure you guys and I don't have to wait. So, leave a comment, subscribe, and I just want to reach 20 subscribers by the end of the year. That'd be pretty cool. Anyways, leave a like and just stick around for the next episode, as that will probably be the last one. Anyways, I hope you guys liked it, and peace out.